My husband and I generated $3,265 in net profit for the month of June before taxes, and one single platform generated over half of those sales, and I wanted to share with you how I did it. Before I dive in, I just wanted to be really clear that the money we generate on reselling is not our primary income source. He actually works a very stressful full-time job from home, and we're just looking at this as more of an experimental phase. I've been doing this for about 2 years, and I'm really just trying to find different ways to tackle selling items online in the quickest amount of time and generating the most amount of money that could help us when we do retire for travel expenses or extra healthcare costs that may come up. So let me go ahead and dive in on what I did for the month of June. All right, so I just want to start off by sharing some of the numbers for the month of June on what it looked like as far as my sourcing revenue and my gross and net profit. I use Flipwise to keep track of these numbers. It's just been such a lifesaver for me. I used to do it manually in Excel sheet, and boy, did that take a lot of effort, and also kind of pushed me away from wanting to resell because I don't like doing data management. But you can see that this is just a great clean interface, and I just love it. But for the month of June, I did $4,993 in gross sales with a net profit of $3,265 with a 65% net profit margin, which is great. And most of my sourcing has come from yard sales, so of course this really makes sense. I haven't really done a lot of estate sales because I don't need to. I got a plethora of yard sales every single week and weekend. But I also try to track other sales that we go to see if it really was a particular spot that we would go and do this again. Obviously, every year is going to be different with people's items that they're selling, but it just gives us a general overview on would we spend money to head to these other areas of our state of Oregon. All right. So you can see Facebook Marketplace just dominated the month of June. To be fair, I did not list or cross-list some of these items to those other platforms like eBay and Poshmark, but I just wanted to just show you that you don't have to. I mean, it's clear that certain items do better on certain platforms, and I feel like I'm really trying to hone in on that niche on Marketplace. Here were the private sales. I just want to preface there. I'm trying to do tracking on those, and this is all done again on Marketplace. When I have customers reach out to me directly on a particular item, I'm able to have that customer interaction and build that trust so that I can capture that sale without having fees involved or any other platform involved. I use Pirate Ship to do my private shipping, so I'm kind of set up to do that. But as a total, between my private sales and Marketplace, I'm at around $1,800, so over 50%, which is excellent. So yeah, I would love to just dive into the top 10 sales that sold in 1 day or less. All right, guys, I got to start this off with a nautical theme item. I'm from the Oregon coast, and I really just have a fond memory of having these type of items laying around the house. And so this particular lot of 8 wooden floats I found at a garage sale laying on the floor in a bag for $5. I've never sold this type of item before, especially in this rough of condition. But I thought for $5, let's just give it a shot, see what it does on Marketplace, because I've been testing out the platform for these types of home goods. And surprisingly enough, it sold in less than a day for $55, giving me a net profit of $33.77. Coming in at number 9 for the top 10 items that sold in 1 day or less in the month of June is this vintage mid-century Japanese collapsible bamboo net basket. And this was kind of interesting because I was at an estate sale of which everybody was running to the closet to get clothes or any other home good items that were laying around. But I actually eyed this set of 3 of baskets that were laying on the floor. One of them was quite large. There was this one, and then also another interesting looking woven basket, of which all 3 sold very quickly. And this was one of those. And look at this, the design detail. It was just so unique. I loved the idea of this hand knotted netting around a bamboo base. And it folded down, even better. Easy to ship, very lightweight, and it sold for my full asking price of $55 in less than a day. And my net profit was $43.06 on this just beautiful, beautiful basket. All right, coming in at number 8 for the top 10 items that sold in less than a day is this vintage men's Levi's black denim Sherpa line trucker jean jacket. I was actually driving through one of my favorite mobile home parks in a neighboring city, and I saw this just hanging on the side of this one person's house, and I had to stop and take a closer look. When I got there, I noticed that it was a vintage Levi's Sherpa line jacket. And I asked her how much she wanted for it. And the lady that was at the home said, how about 20 bucks? And I said, sounds like a plan. So grabbed that thing right up. And the reason why I thought it was special was that it said made in the USA. And you can clearly see that this vintage Levi's tag either was from the 70s or potentially the 80s. And I just thought it was in decent condition. Got it home, got it washed, and it sold to someone in Oregon actually for pretty close to my asking price. And my net profit was $50.62. Coming in at number 7 is this vintage framed hand-signed bouquet of roses painting. And I would say more of a medium-sized piece of artwork. And you can see it, I titled it with the word moody because it had that really cool dark black background. And I just thought the attention to detail with the water drops and just that red pop was just awesome. I picked it up for $5, but when I got home, I noticed that the frame was damaged. You can see some of those knobs there were torn off. It didn't seem to affect the price because I sold it for my full asking price of $60 on Facebook Marketplace to one of my repeat customers actually. So this gave me a total net profit of $55. Coming in at number 6 is this vintage 1970s hand-stitched honeycomb king-size quilt. And I picked this up for $5 at another one of my favorite mobile home parks. And this one lady I have actually purchased a lot from in the past, and she just has just such a lovely collection of items from Pendleton to quilts. And this particular one is hand stitched because you cannot use a machine to generate these sort of edges on this type of layout. So you can see real close here. I know it's kind of hard, but these are all little hand stitched stitch work that was done throughout this entire top, which is pretty valuable when it comes to quilts because people want that handmade presence. So this even had a couple holes in it, but that did not deter from the value on Mercari of all places. This was actually the last item I've sold on Mercari. It is pretty tough to get sales on this platform. But as you can see, it was a beautiful quilt, and my net profit on it was $78.63. Coming in at number 5 is this antique framed original watercolor of a ship on water. And I found this at a garage sale, actually, as well as another pairing piece to this item. And I just thought it was really cool looking. And at the bottom, you can see that it was artist signed. It ended up being a pretty well-known artist of that time period, and so that made it extra special. I picked this one up as well as the other for $7.50 a piece, And I asked the owner of these where she got them, and she told me they were actually from an addict in an old bank she used to work at. And they decided to get rid of them. And she sort of said, I'll rescue them from you, and had them in her house, but decided to let them go. I'm so glad I found these because they were just so beautiful. And you can tell on the back, it for sure is old, and it was framed in Oregon. But I ended up selling this in less than a day to a repeat customer in California. She picked this up really quickly, and I went ahead and sent her a message on Facebook telling her that I actually had another one if you'd be interested. And she said yes after seeing the picture. So I actually did a private deal on the second painting, and then this one was through Marketplace, which I got a net profit of $84.77. And I told her, hey, if you see anything else in my store, please just reach out to me directly, and we can go that way moving forward. Coming in at number 4 for the top 10 items that sold in less than a day for the month of June was this Vintage Vanguard Studios oil painting by the artist Stewart. Of course, I had to pick it up again because it's nautical themed. I cannot pass that up. It was a beautiful, kind of moody looking ships that were on the sea with that nice neutral color palette. You can see that it did have the Stewart signed signature here. I didn't know anything really about this. I had to use AI to help me. And apparently this was a very well-known studio that produced quite a lot of art. And on the back here, it did have that stamp that it was an original painting. I had a customer reach out to me to ask if the shipping could be reduced on my end. So I went ahead and looked it up. She had offered me $100 for it. I did a price quote on shipping to her area. It was a little bit more for me to ship it, but I went ahead and just matched the price here of $13 to Marketplace to obtain that sale as a private deal. And so it sold in less than a day for $100 with my net profit of $93.73. All right, coming in at number 3 is this Vintage Guess Women's Pink Blue Denim Bucket small handbag from either the late 90s or early 2000s. I added the keyword Barbie because it just kind of reminded me of something of that era. And looking at it, you can see that it had pretty good hardware and exterior condition. I found this at an estate sale along with some other Coach handbags, of which I handed off to my husband, and he ended up putting them on the ground because he was digging through something else and completely forgot about the pile of Coach handbags. Well, guess what? They were gone by the time we realized that they were not in his hands any longer. But that's okay. I ended up keeping this one. This one actually was the most valuable anyway. I didn't really know what to price it because it did have some of those issues. But I did cross-list this to all platforms except Marketplace, and it sold on Depop for $135 with a net profit of $114.76. Coming in at number 2 is this Vintage Egyptian, and I'm not even going to try to say it because I do not want to offend anybody, but it's an applique wall hanging tent maker quilt. And this one was for sure my favorite sale, probably for the entire year. I used AI to kind of generate from this photo to help generate an idea of what it might look like in your home or a boho home. And this was just fascinating because look at this color work. I have never seen anything quite like it, as well as the idea that it was all hand stitched. Look at this. Incredible. All hand stitched. This entire piece, nothing was made with a machine. So the amount of time and hours to not only cut out this piece, but then to hand stitch it was unbelievable. So I ended up putting this on all marketplaces of which Etsy stole the show on this one and sold in less than a day. And I made a total of $136 in net profit. And this one was purchased from a out-of-town garage sale. All right, here's the grand finale, and that is this signed crown Trifari vintage figural owl brooch, blue molded glass green enamel. I just couldn't believe this. I found this at a neighborhood garage sale, actually. My husband and I were able to get in early, and this particular couple had so much jewelry. I just went straight to it. I don't know much about jewelry, but I just knew there was something going on here because of the amount of vintage jewelry that was laying on this table. We ended up finding quite a bit, but this was the star of the show. I mean, look how pretty this is. I've only sold one Trifari piece in the past, and I remembered researching that brand, and there is a lot of collectability to this brand, especially the vintage items. And just keep an eye out for these type of pieces. It sold in less than a day. Actually, it was probably a few hours at my full asking price of $175. I did do free shipping just to entice that sale. And also it did have that small little chip there, but it didn't hurt a thing. I was able to generate $142.72 in net profit. Just an amazing piece. All right, so I had a combination of 42 sales that were on all platforms that sold in a day or less for a total of $1,703 in net profit, of which 32 were actually just on Marketplace alone, selling in a day or less with a net profit of $1,120. From this conclusion, I am finding that focusing on Facebook Marketplace has been very lucrative and not only churning out fast profit, but building a clientele there that I can't really seem to do on any other platform. All right, so that's the recap of the June sales with Facebook Marketplace taking the lead. I don't know what you all think. I'd love to hear your opinions on Marketplace. I'm not saying it's perfect because I have a lot of challenges on that platform, more than any other platform, but I'm sticking with it. I'm really just trying to find that internal drive to keep with Marketplace because of the amount of revenue that I do generate on it, and also because I meet some cool people online and in person. But anyway, what do you think about Marketplace? Are you finding success or have you given up?